Hello everyone, welcome to my session, Common Mistakes to Avoid While Developing a Flutter App. I'm Kamal. I'm a Google developer expert, a YouTuber, and a developer advocate. So today's topic is not going to be like the usual topic where I talk about a Flutter concept or I give a demonstrations on that particular topic or a use case exchange. It's more on how to understand the mistakes that we make while developing a Flutter app, or a kind of a checklist that we need to follow while developing a better app, or what are the mistakes that have kind of turned out to be the best practices. So we got to follow that, and I'm going to share my experience as to what kind of mistakes I made and how I came with a better solution while developing apps. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. I'm a kind of a firm believer of making mistakes and learning from it. So when I say mistake, it does not mean that we have made a mistake in order to kind of quit it. No, we are making so that we come up with a learning curve for ourselves and also building up a best practice for others. Now, why are we doing all this is to make sure that we give a good quality code and a performant application, right? And always you should not feel that you stick to best practices and move, but also you share your mistake and see how you kind of overcame it. So we're going to see all those details today. So let's say we start with an app. Now the first thing that comes to your mind is an idea. Well, never an idea is going to be a wrong idea, right? An idea is an idea unless you make it working. So I'm talking about the idea process. So when I have the idea, the first thing that comes to my mind is the design, the UI UX. The translations happens, right? So as a developer, I think our focus should be very minimal on the design aspects and more focus on the functionality aspects. Because our job is not to get the design, because I see a lot of developers kind of stuck with the design. They really don't know what to do next. What are the kind of intricate features that we have to concentrate while designing process? Well, as a developer, that's not my job. So how do we kind of overcome this? Well, definitely thanks to the advanced tool that makes a job easy so that we can concentrate on more functionality part rather than the designs. Definitely, I would like to introduce you to one of the best tools called Flutter Flow, which I have tried and worked out amazingly. And seriously, it's a tool to be tried. It's a low-code builder for native mobile application. You can use a simple drag and drop interface to build this app. If you want to build an app, it's 10 times faster than the traditional development, whether connecting to the database, API, integrate, or deploy. Definitely, there are a lot of tools in the market. Say, for example, we have an Adobe XD and there's a plugin integrated. So all you have to do is set it up and you're good to go. But this tool is being more kind of easy as a developer. It's not more of a design based or it's not more of a drag and drop based. It's between something where a developer will be more adaptive and more efficient in using it. So in my upcoming slides, I'm going to show you how easy it is used and how a developer can benefit and look from a developer's perspective and not from the design perspective. So if you look at the UI layout or the dashboard of the Flutter Flow, the first thing is you get to select the pages, the components. So the terms that you see here are all in terms of the Flutter development. So what are the terminologies that you use? The same is used here to make it easy for a developer to understand. Now, say for example, you are an entrepreneur, you're more on a sales team and you're more of a product manager. Definitely you would not be thinking about learning the code, learning the syntax and doing it. But at the same time, you must have learned a few things about Flutter, right? So what you do is these kind of tools makes your job easy. So I know what is a component, but I'm not here to write a component part. I need something that can make my job easy. So that is the kind of the inspiration they have behind building this Flutter Flow. Then there's this UI builder, there's this widget tree. So as a Flutter developer, I know what's a widget tree. So the same is being kind of represented visually here. And then also we have Firestore collection, API calls, project media and assets. So it all talks the Flutter language here, and custom functions and setting and integration. And it's very easy to set up. All you have to do is create an account, and you have free trials, free components to create. You can get your hands dirty. Also, we have a set of good, awesome category of templates readily available. If I have to build this, I'm sure it's going to take more than a day for me in Flutter. Because if I'm new to Flutter, I'll have to learn the concept. I have to find which widget does this. If it is not, I have to create a custom widget. So you can think the complicated or the kind of complexity involved while doing this for me. So the same thing, if I want to kind of change the color, change the blocks, drag and drop, I can do it easily without worrying about the code or how it's going to break my code. So it's that easy. So please do try out this. It's easy to use and very efficient. You have an idea, you want to kickstart, you want to get this up running, try it out. It makes your job faster when you go for the traditional approach. And this is a little more about the UI builder, where you have a canvas area to display the mobile device screen, where you can add elements, dragging, dropping, as I told you, and you can also modify the canvas size, choosing the list of different preset device sizes. And also we have a property panel. Say for example, we have a component, we want to align center. Hardly I can remember what are the properties attached to a particular widget. I'll have to get into the internal docs, find it out. But here on the left corner, here on the right corner, they kind of display all the details of the properties, where it's all click, select, drag and drop kind of features. Whether it could be like actions like on tap, on submit, or adding animations or padding, alignment, or even label text. It makes it so easy. And the best part about all of this is I'll get the entire code. So there's an option to view the code, and the code is available for each screen. And if I take the code, paste it in my IDE, I can get the same app running on my emulator. So that's the best part about Flutter Flow. So if you haven't tried out, give it a try. Next, moving on to the resources. So when you start learning Flutter, it's always that people are kind of overwhelmed with the resources. They say, most of the time I've been approached by people saying, Kamal, you know what, I've watched this video, I have watched this particular tech talk, or I have followed these authors' blogs, but still I'm kind of confused. I don't know where to start. It's like I know, but I don't know how to do it. So this all happens that if you are overwhelmed with too many resources. So I would suggest that if you're an aspiring developer who wish to learn Flutter, or if you're someone who have already started but still kind of scattered and not on the right path, I would suggest always start with the official docs. It kind of gives you a baseline. It gives you a foundation to learn a concept, because that's the official document, because people are the ones who have built this Flutter for us. Now, understand the technical aspects of it. Now, once you get the technical aspects, and if you want to explore and see how it could be built in a better way with different approaches, or if you want to explore furthermore, that's when I would suggest you to get into the YouTube or Medium or Stack Overflow or Reddit or anything as such. But to get your basics right, always follow the official docs. So for Flutter Dev, we have the Flutter Dev. For the Dart Dev, we have the Dart Dev website. Community, we have the Medium. You can follow these articles. And for the Flutter docs, also we have the internal technical docs available. And then we have the GitHub. I think GitHub is one major resource, because Flutter being the open source and where you have all the libraries or projects or packages, in fact, the SDK available, I suggest that go through the GitHub, see the issues, see the closed issues, and also you can see what are the kind of commits done, how this library was built, what was the intention of it, read the README, the wiki sections, the releases. So these are the things that as a developer you should follow and not avoid, because if you don't follow this rigorously, then you tend to make these kind of common mistakes while developing Flutter apps because you're not updated with any latest. So moving on to the next one, I'm sure most of you must have missed few targets. Well, here the targets that I'm referring to is the releases, where I'm sure most of you do not follow the Flutter releases or the Dart releases. We have every few months releases happening in Flutter with all the feature requested by developers like you and me, and even the Dart release, feature request, new updates. So I think as a Flutter developer, it's not only about fixing bugs, it's also about finding out what was yesterday, what got fixed today, and what are the new features coming up in the next few months, and what is in the pipeline. So the same thing that you could actually implement in your project and see how you can solve your existing issues and also keep your app prepped for the future releases. And when it comes to the old style school, do you still follow the old style when you're following a tech or a product or something? Definitely not. Every time it gets upgraded with new models and you use the latest one, right? Similarly, even in Flutter, as a Flutter developer, you have to keep yourself updated with the new releases, what really got fixed from the old release when compared to the current one, and what is expected for the new releases. So you can see the complete history of it and all the details. So just to give you the roadmap of the Flutter releases, we had Flutter 2.0, then Flutter 2.2, and then 2.5. And last year, December, we had 2.8, and also we had Dart 2.15. I'm sure there are so many developers who still do not know that there was a release in Dart as well. So please keep up to date with these kind of updates, because these are the common mistakes that you make as a Flutter developer, and you need to understand them. So if you look at the Flutter 2.8, so the update that we had was more on performance improvement, new Firebase feature, desktop status, tooling updates, and many more. So the first and the foremost was the release of the Google Mobile SDK for Flutter in general availability. We had 5 supports, add format supports, which integrates both add mob and add manager support. But if you're more of publishing apps, you will understand this. And also it includes the beta of the new mediation feature to help you optimize ad performance. We also had Flutter Fire plugins from graduating slowly from the beta to the stable mode. We had Dartpad updates for several Firebase services, which was really an interesting part where we had Firebase support inside Dartpad, where I don't have to do any setup and I'm good to go connected with my Firebase. And we also had plugin moving from stable to stable state for Android, iOS, which includes analytics, performance monitoring, remote config. And there was also another major updates, which were the Flutter stable releases for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And the best part about is in the Dartpad, we had a channel where always it used to be the latest stable version. But now you have a drop down called channel, and you can actually select the latest beta channel or the previous stable channel or the new channel. So you have an option to do this. I know it's a very simple update, but trust me, if you are someone who is working in and out with Dartpad and using it, you would find that interesting. So if you want to find more details about it, you have it on Flutter 2.8. You can find more details on the official documentation. Moving on, we also had Dart 2.15, where we had the compressed pointers, diagnostic message, isolate, secrets, leaks, retraction. So compressed pointers was like result in a significant memory reduction. See, if you're a Dart developer and you work too much on Dart, or you're more a technical person who likes to deep dive into more technical aspects of it, you would find these interesting. And there was like 10% reduction of Dart heap size. And also, if you're a package publisher and you accidentally kind of pushed a secret key like the cloud or the CI credentials, then we have something to detect it. So they're very simple but yet effective. And also they have added a package to retract a package version that has already been published. Sometimes it happens, right? Mistakes happen. We kind of publish a faulty package version. So if you are a package publisher, you will understand. And so you have an option to retract it also. And they also started redesigning and re-implementing how isolate work by introducing a new concept called isolate groups. And so if you're more working on isolates and you want to know about it, you can definitely go check out about isolate groups. Actually, isolates makes individual isolate in the group more cheaper. So find out more about it on Dart 2.15. So another update was in Dart, you can create a function object which points to a function or another object by using the function name. So to cite you with a simple example, I have a class with a string, and then I have a method called greeting which prints the message, and there's a sub message and there's a text. So if you look at the line 10, I have an object 1 of the class, and then I have an object 2 which is like the object 1 calling the function, and then when I print, this is what I get. So if you are someone learning and doing it in a different way, we have a better way to do things here. Coming to the enum part, now you can get the string value of each enum value using .name. So you can see that we had create, interact, engage, and Windows, we're having a new update coming up. So stay tuned for more updates. And I can get the string value of each enum just by using .name. So starting with Dart 2.15, now you don't need to download DevTools exclusively. No further installations is required. It is a part of 2.5. So definitely it's a good news for us that we can use it exclusively here and no need of extra installations. So checklist is something that I say it varies from person to person. Now, when I build an app, I have a different checklist. Checklist is something that I always keep as like a blueprint before I start building a Flutter app. So now these are the few checklists that I follow rigorously. Maybe it's different, or you would like to add something, or you would like to delete something. It's totally up to you. All right, now so these are the few of the checklists that I follow when I'm building apps. So the first one that I would like to focus is the theme. I still find people using theme inline, whether it's in a text widget or a button. They don't use it as a theme file. They don't use color widgets. They don't use color constant. So it's always good to maintain a different file when you're working on this. Widget structure. Still people add all of the functionality in main.dart file. No, you will have to split the widget into different widgets. All right, so moving on to the architecture part, it's very important to understand that you have to separate the logic from the UI, irrespective of what state management that you are following, because it is easy to build. If the team grows, they know where the logic is and where the UI is, and if you want to change the backend, it is very easy to do it. And then moving on to the linting rules, a tool that analyzes your source code to flag any kind of programming error, bugs, stylistic errors, or suspicious construct. It supports verifying a good quality code. I always suggest to use const on widgets so that you can cache the part of the widget tree to prevent unnecessary rebuilds. It's very important. Also avoid relative imports like lib. Instead use package imports and try to avoid relative imports. Use a README and documentation because I still see people do not add README. They follow the counter app README itself and add some screenshots, tell us what your app exactly does, and a few links, few wiki links and documentation. It's very important. These are the common mistakes that people do while building Flutter projects. Try to avoid them. Use private variables, naming convention, follow naming conventions while you are building a Flutter app. Moving on to this, it's very important, and I really like this part of this best practices that I follow, that is knowing how your app looks and performs on other devices. So it's important to use, I think this device preview is one of my favorite plugin where I use it to test and preview any device, whatever that I'm building on, because I cannot get all real-time devices to test it. So it changes the device orientation. It keeps the application state, plugin state, customizable plugins. And also I can change the language, dark mode, text scaling factor. So it's a very handy plugin. Do give it a try and see how it is efficient when you're trying to build an app which kind of satisfies different device views. So definitely do try it out. Next, moving on to the packages, I'm sure every project would have tons of package to be used, and it's a very efficient way to get good, amazing, good-looking apps. But at the same time, do not overload your app with a lot of packages, because I see there are a lot of people who are using packages for even toast and snack bar, which I don't think is an efficient way to do it. I think it's always good to validate any third-party package before being used in your application, because sometimes it might break the build or not be in sync with the current version of Flutter. So it's especially required when you are kind of upgrading the Flutter version, and make sure you check all your plugins and third-party packages after upgrade. And I also see that a lot of people use package and they forget to remove it if they're not using it anymore on your pub/spec. So always have a quick check of your pub/spec.yaml file to see if you're using unnecessary package or you're referring assets or any other fonts which is not required. You can remove them to reduce the load on your app. Then moving on, we have something called as Debug Console, which is also a very minute detail that people try to avoid not using it, where a lot of details are kind of captured here. So if you come to the debug console, we have a lot of details, like if you're getting rebuilt a lot of times, if your widget, it kind of gives you an error here. So have a look into it. You would find a lot of interesting facts about this debug console. So something not to be avoided. And coming to the testing part, I would say it's a very important thing, but still 80% of the developers do not follow writing test cases. Now, to determine if your feature or the app that you've built is within a system are performing as expected, to confirm that the system satisfies all the related standard, how do you do it? As per the guidelines or customer requirements, we need to know that, right? So testing is the only way to find it out. So if you see, we have unit test, we have widget test, we have integration test, where if I want to just test the logic of it under a variety of conditions, go for unit test. If I want to test a particular UI part, whether it is able to receive and respond to a particular interaction, go for a widget test. Integration test, where it's like the complete app or the large part of an app that you want to verify the performance, do it. Try to do all kinds of tests when you are working on Flutter apps, because it's something that you will have to use day in and day out. And it's a very good practice and something not to be avoided. So we have seen a lot of things not to avoid and what are the things we have to inculcate while we are developing Flutter apps. But how do we do it at a larger extent? So I think we can solve this problem, which I have followed, and come up with some best practices or some of the mistakes that I have made and learned is by talking to experts, talking to developers, expressing the concern that you have, how you can solve them, getting different views, being a part of the community, whether it is to share a knowledge or find out what could be the alternative solution, be a part of the community. Try to get it open source so that you can get different views on your problems or solutions, or a different perspective on what you're building. Make mistakes. Unless you make mistake, you will not know if this could be the next best practice. So try to follow these approaches and you would be able to avoid those common mistakes and use the best practices to build a better app. And these are the couple of references that I followed, and these are the official docs, and you should be good to go with it. And you can reach me on all of these channels if you have any questions related to Flutter, or any questions that you've been stuck and you don't know how to progress, or anything related to today's session. You can reach me on all of these mediums. That's it. Thank you so much for listening to my session, and I'm sure you would have got a pinch of how to avoid the common mistakes, or what to follow in order to make your app as the better app and a good quality app. Thank you.